so fun to be like up during the evening and talk about speedrunning. And it's so fun to looking back and try to remember all these fantastic moments.
Good luck.
Hello everybody, my name is Lat Mackey, and this is Sequence Break, episode 43, Frezzy Man. Here he is, live in person. Frezzy Man, how you doing, dude?
Yeah, I'm so excited but talking about speedrunning or like in the old times and touching some interesting areas.
And not to make too much light of it, but the fact that we haven't seen, you I don't see you stream on Twitch very much. Did you actually stream much at all when you were speedrunning back in the day?
No, like Twitch was not introduced yet, kind of. So no streaming. And I know that when it started, that some speedrunners started to play on Twitch. I think I had done my last speedrun back then, so it was the step to go into Twitch was a little bit too big. I didn't have any interesting things to share then after all my runs I submitted.
After this crazy amount of, in my opinion, legendary speedruns, there's just so much to get to, and there's so much that you did, and I honestly feel a bit weird because the way I found all of your stuff was kind of just watching it through YouTube. I didn't start seeing speedruns until about 2014, and at that point thankfully there was a ton of your stuff already on YouTube and things like that. So I had a chance to, but I never got a chance to see you live at some of those events that happened early on and things like that. So it's really a pleasure and it's an honor that you've taken the time to chat some of this stuff, because I know it's nowadays it seems like ancient history, even though it was like 5 or 10 years ago. It wasn't too terribly long ago. So
yeah, so 10 years ago I did my last one, but there was so many runs published, and we had some marathons, and the last 10 years I have not been into speedrunning, and it's I have been looking forward to, I had other goals, so I haven't been into speedrunning at all, basically, almost nothing. So it was really hard, and it's also very exciting to try to look back and remember actually what happened. So I had some problems, how many runs did I do actually? And I tried to do some research, and I know it was many. So I don't know if I found everyone when I was researching for it.
I'm guessing there's more out there, because it seems like if there was an NES game that had any sort of a speed run to it, you were doing it. So. Yeah. Which actually leads me to my first question. When did you start gaming it up? When did you start playing games, and what were some of the first games that you played?
I started playing NES so early that I don't as far as I can remember, I've been playing games. So I think I got an NES at my birthday when I was 4, I think. And I started playing before that, when I was 3 probably. My neighbors had an NES and my cousins had it, so I always ended up playing it. So I loved playing Mario Bros and other games. So I have a video recording of when I was playing when I was 4 or 5, just running through the levels of Super Mario. So it's I started really early.
Was the NES as popular in Sweden as it was here in the States? Because it was everywhere. That was the console that got everyone into video games, it seems like, at least for my age group.
Yeah, I think it was the same in Sweden, or even even more popular. It was all over. So yeah, it was very popular. And when I remembering back in time, the games was scarce. So I have a son now, he's 8, and he's always he's spoiled. We have thousands of games in my house. So, and he always say he wants a game that we don't have. And I tell him when I was in your age, I had 3 games. And I had to play them over and over and over again. And it was Super Mario Bros. And Super Mario Bros. 3 and DuckTales. So I play them a lot. So like when beating them, I just play them over again. So and sometimes I borrowed games. Like my cousin had when I was young, like 4 or 5 years old. He had the Turtles 2 game, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles in US, and it's called Teenage Mutant Hero Turtles in Europe.
Oh, there you go.
And we played it like all the time, and I borrowed it like over and over again until he was so tired of me borrowing that game. So he like said, like, you can have it. So we played a lot.
So you mentioned that you only had some of those 3 games, and then you'd borrow a lot. Here in the States, we had rentals. You could rent games and things like that. Were you able to beat Mario 3 or Mario 1 or DuckTales as a kid? Like, did that actually happen?
Yeah, it did. I think the first game I actually beat was the Turtles game, Turtles 2.
Oh,
and I
cool.
think I was like 5, 6 years old. There was an older friend of mine, 2 years older than me. He knew how to beat it. And I was so like excited, like, can we play 2 players and beat it together?
Yeah, totally.
And I remember it like, so yeah, I have like strong memories of these moments. So I remember beating it, and then I succeeded in beating it myself like the day after or something. I figured it out. So I think I got a confidence boost. So I was young when I was beating Super Mario Bros. And Super Mario Bros. 3 also, like 6, 7 years old maybe. Yeah, and DuckTales and all these games. But it was hard to figure out like the tricks back in the day. I didn't have like money to buy all the guides, and like many of my friends had not beaten the game, and they couldn't like give tips and tricks about it. So you just had to play it all over and over again. So
we were very fortunate. My brothers and I, we had a subscription to Nintendo Power. I think it was like a gift for, for a month or for a year or something like that. And for my parents. And so that was the only way we were able to get through like Zelda and things like that. So the fact that you were figuring this out on your own, I mean, I'm wondering, it kind of feels like that could have been like the start or the itch to kind of learn how to play through games, because you had to do it yourself. That's fascinating.
Yeah. And you didn't have a lot of games. And I think when I tried to reflect back in the days, it was always like on weekends and when we had spring breaks, and it was always like my mom told me that I was not allowed to go to my friends until 10 a.m. because it was too early, and I was always like waking up very early, like 5, 6 in the mornings, because I wanted to play the game so much. So I always had like 4 hours before I could go over to my friends and play there. So I played for myself. So, and I was so bored sometimes that I remember there was some mornings like, how many times can I beat Turtles 2 in a row, like before I go to my friends? So
Yeah.
It started very early. And also I got like, I had nothing to do, so I tried to like beat the first stage without take any damage, and I did it. So and then I somehow I don't know if I believe myself, but I'm pretty sure I completed the first 3 levels without taking damage, and I was like 8, 9 years old or something. So I was early with that. So I guess that started my speed running thing like early. I didn't know that I could compete in it somehow.
That's so crazy to me, because if I knew anybody who could actually beat a Nintendo game, they were like God gamer to me. Like I had a friend who could beat Super Mario Brothers 1 without using the warp pipes, and it blew my mind. And so the fact that you were obviously you were getting the itch. This is so cool that you were actually able to do these things, and it makes a lot of sense seeing your gameplay later on. Do you have any of your original carts or any of your original console as a kid?
I have all my not all of my cards. I have some of these that are most special to me, like the Turtles 2 card, because there is no game that I have played so much. So it's crazy how much I played that game. It's not a very complicated game. It's kind of monotonously like you do the same thing all over again. So yeah, I have some of these games. Mario and Mario 3, I think I still have.
Very cool. Did you ever venture off? Did you ever play any other consoles or any other games growing up as a kid, or was it mostly Nintendo stuff?
Yeah, I got it's called in Europe the Sega Mega Drive. So it's the Sega Genesis.
Oh, cool.
So I got it when I was 7, 8 maybe. So I played a lot of Sonic 2 and The Lion King. So I had 2 games. Well, then I got the third game. But the first I only had 2 games, Sonic 2 and The Lion King. And The Lion King I did the speedrun of later. So I played a lot of Sonic 2. That was a favorite. And then a little bit later I got the Super Nintendo. Many of my friends had Super Nintendo, but finally I got it. So I got a bunch of games there as well. Played a lot. And then later, when I didn't play very much PlayStation, but when Nintendo 64 arrived, I had some friends having it, so I tried to come home to them and play these games because it was so much fun. And then I got a Nintendo 64 myself, so I played it a lot, some of the games. And then I think I was not very impressed of the 3D games in a way, so I got bored of them in a while. When you beat some games, I felt like I don't like them back then. I thought that I didn't like them that much, as I preferred playing the 2D platform and action games. There was so fast-paced action, and just you got into it right away. So I think when I got a little bit older, like 11, 12, all of my friends said that you can't play the NES or Super Nintendo anymore. It's you are dumb. There's 3D games now.
It's so old.
Yeah. So I think it was 1-2 years that I didn't play so much games, and then internet arrived at when I was a little bit later, maybe 14, and there was so many communities coming up. We had a Nintendo and Super Nintendo community in Sweden. So I think I went bananas in these forums we had, discussing these old games over and over again. And so
I'm kind of right there with you with the transition to 3D. And I don't want to say I resisted, but it was a struggle for me to understand how to move around in the space. And probably because by the time, I guess one of my first 3D games were Mario 64 and Ocarina of Time. And I was probably a teenager by that point. And I still I was so used to everything that was happening on Super Nintendo and Nintendo that it was tough. I kind of resisted playing those games. I was with you, the gameplay just didn't feel as solid and as fun as some of the older games. But as the technology developed and developers figured out how to do it, I slowly came around to some of those games. Do you have a game that you remember kind of got you into the 3D thing? Was it a Mario Kart or something like that you couldn't resist anymore?
Yeah, it was the Mario 64 was really fun, so I played a lot. And that's the 3D game. At first I hated the camera, but we didn't have many other games to play. And then we figured out it's actually it's a complicated controller to learn. So, and moving the camera around, especially when you are young, to get the hang of it.
Totally.
But then later it was really fun, taking 120 stars and stuff. So it was really fun when you got a hang of it. But I still miss the 2D platformers more. So
when would you say then that you first maybe saw or experienced, what got you into the, more to speedrunning specifically? Because it was obvious you were doing it as a kid, but I'm curious what led you to actually maybe consider doing a timed run or something of that nature. How did you discover speedrunning?
Yeah, I think it started with the Morimoto tool-assisted run that was really famous. And it went all over the place. At that time, we had we called it LAN in Sweden. We gathered a lot of computers. We had in any house and just played games. And everyone had this video on their computers downloaded, and everyone was talking about it. And I tried to convince some of my friends that because we didn't know that it was tool assisted.
Oh no.
Yeah, you could like perfect the levels, but you can't take the 1-ups the way he did. It's like impossible. So so I was. It's, how should I explain it? I'm so like fighting with the right words, but it's how should I put it? That was a start. I was convinced that this is not like a legit record in my book. So and I was trying to do some speedruns just to see what time I could get. So and we had the European version that was slower. So that's what I think we figured out, that you can't do these things on the European version, and the European version is a little bit different, so it's not the same thing. It's not, you can't complete, you are jumping just a lot shorter than the American version, so you can't do the things in the European version. And so I think I did some runs. I remember it like completing it in like, I did a few attempts before I completed it quite fast, like 17 minutes or something. In the European version, that should be like 14 minutes in the American version.
Right.
And I don't know if it was before the first real speedrun by Richard Areta. He's like the first record. But I remember I beat it in 15 minutes, and I was quite happy with it. And then like Richard Areta submitted his run that was really good, like 11:08 in the SDA timing, and I think it was because of that run I discovered like the SDA, and that was just not. I think the video had like recently been posted, so it was like after 1 or 2 months, and I was very impressed that I found out everything about the SDA, that there was a legit way to do like records on the classic games.
Yeah.
So I was so stoked, and I saw right away that, man, this guy is good. But when I looked like closely, and I was sure that if I like put my mind into it, I can actually beat it. So and it was, I had a feeling like this will be fun, like a fun adventure to try to beat the records.
So I do have to ask you then, is competitiveness, is that something that's always been a part of what you like to do, or did it seem more like fun? Like what is it that kind of, there we got the Contra shirt. What was it that made you see that and think, I can do that better, or does it look like fun? I'm curious, that kind of approach to speedrunning.
My life is so simple. I have always had like a goal in mind with everything I do. So, the video games at first was not like my primarily goal. It was just I wanted to be the world champion in dirt biking, like motocross.
Oh, cool!
That was my plan. But then later I figured out when I was 14 that if you're gonna get far in that sport, you need to have like parents take you to the course all the time. I was riding once a week, and I couldn't like compete with the best. So I was never like in the top levels of it. But that was my goal in the first 10 years of my, like from I was 4 to I was 14. I was convinced that I will be the world champion. And then I dropped that goal. I realized that there is like no chance I could do that, because I didn't have the the base to do it. So there was like a small period of time where I didn't really have a goal. Like my goal was to make as many friends as possible and like having a good time with them. And then I think maybe I don't know, I don't have the like correct years maybe, but when I was 15 or something, then was when Richard Areta's Mario 3 run came out. So then I got a new goal, like I had to do, because so I aimed for that, you can say,
So
and other records.
Got it. So the first goals that you set for yourself were to beat the times that currently existed on these games that you were trying to run.
Yeah.
Because I was wondering like how you make a goal for, at least somebody had turned in or had submitted a SMB3 run, because there were a lot of other games that didn't have time submitted for them or weren't, it was kind of tough, I would assume, to try to set some realistic or even any goal for some of these games that you were playing back then.
Yeah. That's exactly. There was so many games that didn't have a record. So I figured out that it would be fun to put like like a good run on many new games as well. It was kind of the fun, and it was really fun to do, like be the first to submit runs of many games. And I was like a little bit like pissed off, but why is no one doing a run of this game? And I was frustrated. Why are not more people into speedrunning? This is so fun.
What other games did you start grinding or try taking on besides SMB3 at the time?
At first, I realized that I want to be playing, like I want to run Mario 3, but I had the European version, so I had to do a lot of research. At first, I didn't had an American NES, so I had to like save some money and buy one. And it was quite expensive and like complicated for me. And then I did it finally, so I got the American version, but I didn't know how to record NTSC, so I was frustrated. So until I got like the American version, there was no point. I felt that there was no point doing a European version run of Mario 3 because it was so different. But there was many games that were similar to the American version, so I started to and at that time I know I was a lot into Mega Man 3. I think was such a fun game. So I said to myself, like, let's do a run of Mega Man 3. There is no one doing it, and it works to do it on the European version. Is okay. So I remember I had a goal, like if I beat this game once every day and see like how good I can be at a game. So I remembering I beat it every day at least once for 1 month, and it started to look good. I hadn't completed like without dying yet, but so I had to. So I think I fixed back then we had, what do you call it, VCR tapes in US? VHS tapes in Europe. Yeah. So I started recording, and then like maybe after 2 months I got a decent run of it. So that was the first speed run. And it was complicated back then. You recorded a VHS tape, and then you had to send it to Nathan Yankee in Texas. So I remember you did a package and posted it, and I was like 56 years old. Like, people thought I was crazy. My mom asked me, "Why do you send a tape to Texas?" So I did it, and I think that might have been the first, or just one of the first, like VHS tapes from Europe. I think that like they received at SDA. And it was a long wait for it to be published. It took like 2 weeks of it, like posted it to Texas, and then they had to go through the submission process, and then some they had needed a time to write the news on the SDA page, and before it was online. So, but I remember the feeling when the run finally was submitted, and it was fun.
I've got a couple of questions to that, because it's such a different way of doing things than we do it nowadays, thanks to the internet and everything. First off, did you have to use an NTSC TV, or were you able to? Did you have to change or an NTSC VCR? Did you have to get all this equipment just for doing North American runs?
Well, nowadays I think you have like what do you call it? A more modern way. You just hook it up to the computer and
the capture cards and all that stuff.
Capture cards, yeah. So, but back in the day, we didn't have that. I remember like, yeah, that was also a detail, an important detail. First, I had to, when I got the first American NES, it doesn't work on the TV I had. So I had to buy another TV first. And I didn't know of this. It was very hard to find information. And then you could finally play it, but I couldn't record it. And I didn't have any recording equipment. That was the most frustrating part.
Dang.
So later, finally, when the DVD recorders started to become popular, I think they had like tech support forum in SDA, and they helped me. And I know Nathan Yankee helped me to find like a recorder that I could, so I could record NTSC. And there was some other issues before I could get a good recorder, because I don't remember exactly the details, but they knew there was a recorder I could use for my purpose. They found one, and I couldn't buy it anywhere online, I think. So Nathan, he like helped me. He bought one himself in Texas and shipped it over to me. So
that is so cool.
It was cool.
When you're doing your runs in this setup, are you timing as you play? Do you time it after? Nowadays, we are fortunate. We have live split. We time while we're running the thing. We have splits and all this kind of stuff. Did that timing? How did you do it back then?
I think I started recording, and then I waited a little while, and there was always a timer on the display on the video. So I had the strategy that after 20 seconds of recording, I start playing the game. So then I knew that about what time I had. I had to just,
forgot that.
Find the word.
There was little timers on the VCRs. I remember this now. Yeah. So you can see where you're at least.
Yeah. So it was not very the precision was not that great.
Wasn't
but
scientific.
I remember I was always having notes when I was playing. So I did some checkpoints and write what time I had at different parts.
So
I did.
So for a game like Mega Man 3 or some of the other games that you were playing at the time that had no other submissions, how are you discovering these things just by playing the game over and over again? Like, how are you finding some of the strats and the routing and, just basically how to do a speed run at this time? Because nowadays, I wouldn't say it's easy, but there's usually a community around a game, especially if it was popular like Mega Man. So
it was a big challenge. I know that then when Mega Man 3, I was discussing it in the forum. I would try to do a run of this game, and there was people gave advice but they hadn't they had never done a run of it. So I got some advice was good, but most of the advice I had to no, it's not. It will not work. Right. So I had to sort it out. And I know that there was so many advice that you can do this weapon on this guy and this weapon on this boss. And then I said that, no, it's quicker to just have the what do you call it? The P shooter. The P shooter. Yeah. So, because it takes too much time to change the weapons. And they said that, no, it's faster to change the weapon. But then when my run was submitted, there was many saying that, yeah, you're shooting really fast. This must be cheating. So it was probably why my strategy of going with the P shooter was faster, I think. That's
been one of the fun things of doing research for runs from your time period from that long ago, is how many people get accused of cheating because the level of gameplay is such a high level. The mashing is so impressive that it does. For those of you who had never seen anything else, it's tough. You can't compare it to anything. So it looks like it's not possible. And then you're doing it. And that's going to be one of my questions, because we're going to talk about Contra here in a sec. And your mashing is just kind of unreal. Like, there's nobody else mashing like that at the time. And is that something that you just kind of developed as you were playing, or did you find some rhythms that worked for you as far as like pressing the button as fast as possible?
I think so. I don't know how it's developed, but I play like a lot of like run and gun games and a lot of Mega Man, and it developed over the years from my first Mega Man run to the later runs and the Contra runs. But I got a hang of it. Like, I figured out. I think it was important. At first, maybe when you're like a beginner in these games, you use your thumb. But I figured out, like, if I use all my whole arm like vibrating, I shoot a lot faster. So I think I had like an advantage there. Somehow I figured out, and I know there was some people like claiming they could shoot that fast. So it went past the verification. Anyway, so it was. But I know there was some other guys shooting really fast at that time as well.
How long would you spend on a game? Because you mentioned that you would set goals for yourself, and then once you hit that goal, would you move on? Like, because if you look at you've played so many games speedrunning wise, I'm curious how you end up going to the next one. How do you get to Contra? How do you get to DuckTales? How do you do some of these other games? How long do you spend with one?
Yeah, so it was very different. Like Mega Man 3, I haven't like played it before. I just tried it like when I was a little bit younger, but I think it was too like complicated for me to enjoy when I was really young, like 7 and 8. I think it was fun, but when I get back into it when I was 14, I was like stoked that this is such a fun game. So sorry, I got it so excited. What was the question?
How long? Like, when did you decide to finally try out a new game or speedrun a new game? Like, how long would you spend with a Mega Man, or as you're speedrunning these things?
Yeah. So I think like Mega Man 3 case, it was like 2 months maybe, and I played like back in the day. Back then, I didn't have I played it from start to finish, like over and over again. So I probably beat it at least once every day for 2 months, and I some days I beat it like 10 times in a day on the weekends. So it was a lot of grinding, and it was not the most effective way of doing it. But later it got more effective in practicing. But I know that the later Mega Man games, I put in something similar, but I was better at practicing it. So the runs was better. But then some of the last games, when you already had the world record and you beat your own world record, and then you are at a very high level there, you don't know anyone that is not even close to the record, and you keep playing it anyway. So there was some games that I grinded and played a lot. I don't know if I get ahead of the plan of this interview, but I have maybe I can show it right now.
Please, yeah, let's do this. Perfect time, perfect segue.
I think I have a couple of this is I'm it's. Sometimes I look back to the speedrun years, and I'm proud of what I put my mind into doing the goals for it. So here is a frame. It's all my notes for my Mario 3 record.
That is so awesome.
How many attempts I did. So
oh my God, you tracked it all.
Yeah, and it says that it's 2,732 attempts. So it's up here. It's like I calculated how many attempts.
That is crazy.
So and I tracked how many times do the hands take me and all that. And I have another one for Contra. It's because that was the 2 games that I put most time into. I don't know if you see.
Oh my God! Look at all that.
It's a lot of notes.
Wow.
So, but maybe that's ahead. But for Mario 3, I didn't only want to beat the record for Mario 3. I wanted to take platform gaming and jumping to the next level. So the goal was not to beat Mario 3. It was to with like a boob do something that no one had done before. So my goal for that game, it was beaten by, my first record was beaten by 100G, and then I thought that I could like take it back in a week, because I knew that I had like, I could get past like 11 minutes. I know I did many mistakes, but my goal was to do. I thought for myself I would go for like a perfect run, and I know I was very motivated, because I know 100G was talking about like, in theory we could improve this with 5 seconds, and I realized that I think I could improve it with 10 seconds, but it was so he like I think if I recall correctly from the chat, he didn't understand how you could beat it in 10 seconds. So I think that I told myself that I will do 10,000 attempts if necessary, and I will try to make the perfect run. So, but I only needed 2,700. So I was surprised that it went so quickly. That is that, and it's a lot of practice. It's not only the attempts, because for the last run, you started to get like, I have an NES controller with input lag, so I could practice on an emulator. It was not good practice at all, because of the input lag. I couldn't really practice the hard stuff.
It's not the same
thing. It helped me. It helps me to do the run. So I did a lot of practice, and also some like discussions about some tricks and stuff. So
I think I'm really glad that you show us your notes and that you have them framed and everything, because I think that's such an important part of speedrunning that we haven't touched upon a lot in this podcast, is that there is something very personal about speedrunning. One of the things I love about it is seeing my progress, and like you said, setting a goal and achieving it. I'm fortunate nowadays, I have software that tracks everything that I do. I know how many attempts, I know where all my runs have died. I have such great tools, and I see you doing it with paper. I just think that's so awesome doing it that way, and just being it. But because you cared about those stats, like you could see your improvement if you do this in the chat. Only 2,700 attempts. I know, right? I mean, at this point, Mitch has over 10,000 attempts on an SMB3, so it's not that crazy that it was only 2,700. It's like I think that's an important part of the process too. You mentioned was having to practice. We're lucky we have save states on EverDrives and all this crazy, all these great tools. You didn't have access to any of that as you were doing this. So I got to imagine it was time consuming, to say the least.
Yeah. So it was like after my Mario 3 run, I felt like, well, I will not do a run in a while, but then the save state thing come in, and so I tried like for fun, just to try, and I think it's very effectively you can practice some really hard stuff, but I couldn't like back in the days.
No, for real. The SMB3 stuff, thanks to the Summoning Salt video, we got this really good picture, or at least interesting picture, of how the RAN progressed through all of these different world records. And when you had achieved your world record at the time, did you see like there was time that you could improve upon, or that the run might get better? Or I'm curious, like, what was your thought process after you had finished this really, in my opinion, at the time, high level run of the game?
Yeah, the Mario 3.
Yeah.
Well, the fun thing is that when I started to do the record, I figured out that I could do, like, in SDA timing, like the record was 11:01, and I thought that I could beat like 10:53 at least. So I started practicing it, and then I got closer. I got like 10:55, 10:54. But it was still some big mistakes in it. And I figured out that if I do this perfectly, if I get 10:50 or 49 and it looks good, then I'm done. And I got like 10:52 or maybe something like that. And I figured, yeah, now it's close. It's close now. And then somehow, and I just got, so the run was so lucky. So I got 10:48. And it was better than I realized that I couldn't really believe it at first. Like, did I get 1048? It's better than like my dream run. It was, for me, it was so good. It was like I know back in the day, SDA, if you went into the SDA site, it stated like, remember, there will always be mistakes in the run. But for me, it was like no mistake, and you got more lucky than you could wish for. So it was so good. So I felt that there is like, I know that was a goal, that I know it's going to be beaten at some point. But my goal with the run was that I wanted it to stand for a while. So for some years, at least. For that run, at that time, I had all my known strategy. I did a perfect run, and I got such a good luck during the run. So I can't imagine like 1047. It was back then. It would be so stupid to even try, because in that 1048 run, if I should try to do it like again, I could beat like 20 other world records in other famous games.
Right.
Because that run was, it sounds like I'm bragging, but I'm proud of that run back then. But it was so good that like I had a decision to do. Will I do like 1015 like my other runs, or do I want to do something really so like to the next level? And I did, and it was as fast as I think it was possible with the known tricks back then, basically. But nowadays it's the gameplay is on such a levels with the safe states practicing and everything. So when you look back at that run, of course you can like improve it 1 second or two, but it's you could beat like many other world records easily instead of doing the Mario 3 record.
I know we have the hindsight of being at 2020 now and looking back on that run, but I think to your point, like the gameplay, you executed everything you wanted to. And the thing about Mario 3, and that's the first game that I ever speedrun, was that you need some help at the highest levels RNG wise. Like you have to get lucky. There's just some elements that are just completely out of your hands. So I can definitely understand that sentiment of being like, okay, I can move on, because you could just grind and grind and grind for perfect RNG or whatever. But that'll take an effect on you at some point, you know? Yeah. It's a really great run, and it's really fun to watch, especially in the context. That's why I think Summoning Salt did such a good job when he was showing some of these older runs, because you didn't have access to all the things we have access to nowadays. The save states on hardware. I mean, that's huge. It's a huge thing that wasn't around at the time. So
and I want to mention the Summoning Salt videos. I just love watching them. I don't look at many like speedruns myself nowadays. I'm busy with other stuff, but this Summoning Salt videos it's so fun to watch for all the games. Like he really like showing the progress of the world records. Like they are really, really good. And it's also, I have to mention, we were talking about this with the goal oriented stuff. Like after that Super Mario Bros. 3 run, already before that, I knew it was going to be my last record for a while, because I met my wife and looked into, I did some goals. Like if I put all this time I do into gaming, like can I use it to like create a family and do like a good, like a career and a house for the kids and everything. So I had another goal for many years, but now I have like achieved them. So now I don't really know what to do. So
come back to speedrunning. Okay, sorry.
Going like back to the life, like always had it like a goal.
The grind, right?
We're talking about in Sweden, like you have like you have a crisis at 30, or you have it at 40, because if you get the kids and stuff, and you like, if you succeed with that, you don't really know what to do. So I am there right now. So it might be, I will definitely do some speedrunning of some sort in the future, in some way or another, or like gaming. So
you heard it here first.
Had the time.
But I really respect that you know, there other things take priority in your life, as they should. And I think a lot of people who are our age in their 30s and stuff, you know, we at some point you have to deal with real life. We're super fortunate nowadays that some people can pursue streaming and gaming as a career that exists, but there's all these other things you can do, and that's you know, I think that's really awesome that you know, you prioritize these things. You know, you don't want to sacrifice progressing in life for some of the speedrunning stuff, but that's what I think makes it such a wonderful hobby, and if you're fortunate enough, it could be a wonderful career, but you know, more so a wonderful hobby for a lot of people. So
yeah. I can mention that by how much time I put into my runs, I always thought that I had a lot of other different stuffs going on in life as well, and I know that I had like periods when I was playing more. Like there was the crazy thing I did, I think, was, and I don't know, like today I wouldn't be able to do it, but when I did my Mega Man X 100% world record, I remembering I was beating the game 50 times in 5 days. Like it took like 45 minutes to play it through. So there was some weeks that I could focus on doing speedruns, like 50, 60 hours. But then it comes periods of months when I did not attempt any runs as well. So I had some breaks. So probably for these years I was active, I pulled off like 10, 15, 20 hours a week, if you like to make an estimate of how much every week you put into gaming or speedrunning.
Yeah, absolutely. Wow, what a grind. Which actually kind of leads, I do want to chat a little bit about Contra. And we mentioned Summoning Salt earlier. When he was on the podcast, he's such a great storyteller in capturing the progression of seeing who's playing these games at the highest level at that time. And Contra, he just recently did a video on Contra, and you're featured in it. There's your Contra ones. When did you pick up Contra, and what made you want to speedrun that game?
If you remember the guy when I was beating his name is Christopher, by the way, for TMNT2, when I beating my first game, he also had, like, at the same time, he had borrowed, like in Europe, it's called Probotector. And we were playing like the co-op. And it was so fun. It's like, I didn't want to quit playing it. We had to like go home that day, and the next day, like, or the next time I was at his place, he had only borrowed that game, so he didn't have it anymore. And I think I asked him, like, what was the name of that game? I need to have it. And he couldn't like find the name. He didn't know the name of the game.
Oh no!
And the only thing I remember was a gray like the label on the cartridge with like some like RoboCop style guys.
The guns and
everything. I was searching for that game for so many years, and I didn't find it because my friends, my cousins, they didn't have that game. And when I was like 13, 14, it showed up again, and I found it like when we was into like the internet things and stuff, and I saw some video of it or someone else playing it. So then I started playing it, and it was as fun as when I was like 6 years old. It was. So I didn't play it a lot when I was a kid, but I had like a close relationship to the game. So
it was definitely, if you had it as a kid, that was the game, because you could play 2 players and all you have to do is blow up everything, and that's like, as a kid, that's like the greatest game ever. So it's like, you know, so much fun.
Yeah, it's such a great game as well. Great music, great like gameplay. It's so much fun.
Totally.
So Contra, speedrunning Contra was, I was so much into the Mega Man games during some years, and I think that I knew the game, but I didn't really try to run it. And then I think I realized, like me and like a close friend of mine, Mike, we was playing a lot of game. He was also like into speedrunning games when I started like practicing more Mega Man 3. We did it together, and he also was really good at it. And he was telling me like one day, like, hey, we should run this game co-op. So we just started playing it like crazy. Like we couldn't stop playing it. And we realized he is really fast, like button masher like me, or at least almost. Back then he was at least, like, he had played so many run and gun games, and we realized that some bosses you can like beat in like no time. If you have like 2 fast thumbs and you come to a boss and he just disappear, like you put like 150 bullets in like in how many seconds? Like nothing.
It's crazy.
So I tried to like convince him that we should do like a co-op run for this game, but like he was very like that he was not as much into speedrunning. I think he didn't like grinding.
Right.
So he never like. So I started to play the game myself, and I realized that I had a big advantage of all my Mega Man years when I played a lot of Mega Man games. So at first it was not like, I didn't put too much effort in it. So I remembering when if I recall the names correctly, was it T-Mount who had the first record, and I beat him, and it was, for me, it was not a very big thing. Like 1 week of gaming, because I was such a fast button masher, probably.
That gave you the edge.
And I was so much into these platforming games. So, and then it got beaten, I think, and I took it back. And I remember how do you say, like, I don't know if I had the Mario 3 records already back then, but the Contra one was so popular. Like, people, like, they did like comments that it's impossible to beat this game this fast. And I was thinking that, yeah, you could beat it with 15-20 seconds more. and no one believed me. And I figured out the spread rhythm. So it was so fun to watch, like, did I say the name right? Like Angry Lank's video?
Yeah.
You did like an interview with him?
Yeah, Angry.
It was so fun to listen to that, because how he talked about button mashing and the spread rhythm. Because I like figured it out, but I have no one to talk with it to. Like, there was no one. I couldn't discuss it with anyone.
Right.
So I didn't know how it like went. I just figured out that if you like get the spread rhythm and you keep pushing these buttons, you just get more bullets in a row. And it's I figured out that, hey, I can save a lot of time in this. So
does something like that happen just on one run, or is that something over after playing the game for a week or so you started figuring out that? Because that's a huge discovery, that you don't have to just mash as fast as you can. There's a rhythm to it, and that's game breaking. I mean, that really changes the game once you figure that out.
Yeah, it was always a struggle, because I always knew that I could get a lot of bullets, and in the beginning I didn't know how it happened, and I don't think it took like a long time before I figured out that if I keep like, I don't know, if I push like 13 meshes every second, I think you have to, but I don't know, I have never researched the frame data, but I figured out if I can keep like a 10 meshes per second rhythm, like if I keep pushing it, it will continue to come like in that rhythm. So yeah, I figured it out, and but it was hard, because I didn't know why it happened, because sometimes it works, sometimes it's not only to push the buttons fast, you have to like start doing it at the right time, and I never figured it out, and I am never like doing any like frame data or stuff like that. So I don't know how it works in like, I don't have a whole picture of it.
Yeah. Sometimes you were getting it, sometimes you weren't. It's really interesting too that you, right off the bat, even though you had achieved a world record, you knew there was a lot of time left on the table. And so are you setting a goal based upon that? Like, can you figure out a time in your head that would make sense to grind for?
For Contra?
Yeah.
It was like, I think I got like 1040, and people think that this time was so good. And then I don't remember my submissions time, but I think like, hey, let's beat it for 10 more seconds. So I grinded another week and I got it, and people got nuts in the forum, and when talked to people like, how could you do this? How can you play Contra like this? So I did we had video game communities with meetings and stuff in Sweden, and there was sometimes like people like, you have to show how to play Contra. And I know maybe we got to that question later, but when we had the classic games done quick and these meetings, there was always people coming up like, you have to play Contra. So it was a lot of like publicity or interest about the run. And I knew I could like improve the time. And because all of like people interested in it, so I think that yeah, let's beat it for 7-8 more seconds. And then I got like 10:24, and people go even more bananas about that time. And this is, no one will ever beat this time. and I know I talked with, I think maybe it was in the SDA chat, that hey, you can beat this in like 10 minutes. It's theoretically possible, and no one believed me. So I had to like grind for like, okay, let's do like beat it again. So I did it I didn't want to submit like 1 second at the time, because I know that, yeah, it's in my point of view back then, I played so much and was so much into it, like I could improve it with 8 seconds. It's I knew it was possible. So yeah, so I grinded like every time I did the record. It was because of how much people going nuts about the record, and I think it was cool. And when I reached like 10:18, I was thinking that I could keep improving it, but there was no one that I know there was many people like trying, but they didn't get even close to the record. So it was so much ahead. I think it was like, in a way, like for a run and gun game, it was like I was so long ahead of like most of the competitors in that. Like I had something extra, right. So there was no point. I couldn't see like anyone beating it, at least that I didn't know of at first. Like, right. But then people figured out and like improved it and got even better at spread rhythm and things like that. But I was like satisfied that the run looked good. But I know that I knew that when I did my 10:18, I knew that theoretically you could beat it under 10 minutes with the strategy and techniques I had. So if I like pulled off my best multi-segment, it would probably have been like 10 minutes. But I thought that it was only like in the theory. Like I knew I could grind, like improve it with 10 seconds or something, if I really put my head into it back then. But I was very satisfied with the record anyways, and so yeah, it was. I didn't see a point of pushing it further at that point.
You mentioned this a couple times, and I only learned this through watching Summoning Salt videos, but SDA, part of your submission for a run to be accepted was that the run had to look good. It had to look impressive, you know? And tool-assisted speedruns still have that component to it. The run should look impressive before they publish it, things like that. And I think that's a really interesting, I actually think it contributes to the growth of speedrunning, because watching some of the things that you all did 10 years ago, 15 years ago, it's like those look really cool and they look really fun. And your point about your 10:18 looked good and it was so far away from everyone else that's doing it. I can totally understand saying, hey, you know what? I'm going to take a break from this game because this is going to stand for a while. This thing is going to hang there. It's going to be good. And I definitely understand that kind of logic and thinking to it, even though, interestingly enough, you knew there was time on the table. Like any good speedrunner, you knew that there was still time you could take off the run.
Yeah, it's such a complicated game and so much going on. And I know we talked about some, I don't remember exactly what tricks I did in that run. I think that there was some tricks like they use nowadays. Like some of it's like I knew it and we discussed it back then, but I didn't, in theory, thought it was possible to pull it off in a run, at least how we played back then. And it would, like, the players today that has the records, they have really like went off like many levels above my my level of gaming then. So it's really impressive how it turned out. But
those don't happen without some, with your runs and others, starting this foundation of trying some of these things and getting them into runs.
yeah, it's so fun to like, when you see the Summoning South videos today, and when you hear people talking about it, like Angry Lanks, he was talking about like how he looked at my run back then. It was so cool that so many people's watching it and thought it was impressive and cool to like playing that game at that way. It was it's really cool.
It's awesome to see where it's gone. Like now there's 20 seconds taken off of that run, and where didn't he just get the 940? I mean, he just broke the 950 barrier. So it's like, there's, and he still thinks there might be time left. So
yeah,
it's crazy.
It's crazy.
Really. You mentioned it, and I would like to transition just a little bit and talk about the community that was there in Sweden of friends you had. When Sven was on, he was talking about you and him had met in school, and there was this. You guys had meetings, and there was this community around speedrunning. Can you tell us a little bit about it, like meeting other people who were into the same stuff that you were?
Yeah, I think when I was 14, maybe it was 2002. There was communities being created in Sweden. We had like a community called List My Games, and later it was called Kawabanga. There was a lot of collectors, and we were talking a lot about playing games. So we had some meetups. As far as like, I traveled all over Sweden just to meet people that played the classic games, cool. But they were not like into speedrunning, because in a way I was the first or one of the first like doing speedruns of the classic 2D games in Sweden, of course. But when I was talking about speedrunning, like some people think it was cool, but they didn't almost didn't knew it exists. Right. But we had a lot of meetings. We had we called it, another site was called NESDB. It's the NES database. We had a forum. We discussed all these classic games, and it was like you discuss the game so much, and like all the things in the games. And at one point, when you talk very much on the internet, you want to meet in the real life. So we had some meetings, and then when I got a little bit older, like I figured out that I want to create like meetups as well, because I think it's so fun. So I have actually organized about 40 meetups in Sweden of different kinds. But at first there was no, we never had until European Speedster Assembly, we didn't really have only focus on speedrunning, because there was not so many into speedrunning. But I know that the first meetup I ever did in my on my street, we had a locale or a building where we could have gatherings, and Thomas Abrahamsson, Tompa, showed up with his brother. I don't know if he's all over the community.
Yeah, Tompa is a taster too. He tasked a speed. Yeah, great rudder.
Yeah, and we are not living. We live close to each other, 1 hour driving. And he went to this meetup, and he was into speedrunning. He knew everything. He was reading the forums, and he and his brother, like me, had played these classic games. They never quit playing them. So they had figured out a lot of glitches on their own, on the console, not on the emulator. They just figured out a lot of glitches. So we call them, in Sweden, we always say it was bugs in the games, buggar. We called them, it was so funny, we called them bröderna bugg. That means the glitch brothers. So And we had so much fun on these meetups.
Yeah.
So, and me and Tompa, we were decent at Super Mario World. So we like sitting up all night, and we had races on Super Mario World 100% friends.
Oh man.
So and then we had another meetup like 2-3 months later, and he showed up again, and we played Mario World all night long doing races. So it was so fun. And we also like, we were on these meetups to just discuss the games. It was so interesting, and we was nerds. So and then I think later when Svenne, for example, he was not in the first meetups, I think, but then later when in like 2009, 2010, we created the how do you call it, an association in Sweden. So we, like every month we had a meetup for a year or two. So and so then you could feel that speedrunning got more popular, like in everyone's mind. Like if you had like a game you liked, you always watch the speedrun of it and discuss it. I think it developed because all these meetups, we had like Street Fighter tournaments and Mario Kart tournaments, and it was so fun. And Svenne was like, and some other guys like Krippe, Arva, some local boys, they were like, shouldn't we have like a speedrun meetup?
Yeah.
And I had like been at the Classic Games Done Quick and everything, but I didn't know how to figure out I was not into Twitch because I have gotten my first kid and everything. So I didn't have the time to run. So I saw no point like in being online on Twitch, but right. They convinced me like, no worries, we fix the stream thing with the Twitch, and you fix the rest, so of the locale and everything, and bring some people here. So,
right.
So that's the short story of like how it later developed to European Speedster Assembly. So yeah, it was not like if you talk years, this was after my Super Mario run, but when I didn't really like grinding for world records anymore.
Right.
But I wanted to do these meetups because I think it was so much fun to meet people in real life and do what we liked. So
that actually makes a lot of sense, or definitely, because my next question was going to be, how the hell do you end up at Classic Games Done Quick in the States, doing that thing? Already I can see where this is going, because you obviously liked hanging out and being around people who were into the same stuff that you were into. And as you said, nerd out. Like that's one of the greatest things about attending an event or a meetup or anything like that, is nerding out with things you're passionate about. How did you end up at the very first Classic Games Done Quick?
I think that we're talking so much in the forums about games, and it was like it was a community. We had a chat channel where we like wrote to each other a lot also, and then I was always curious, like what is this? It's like people in reality. You didn't even have a face of the people. So now Mike Yama, for example, he who like hosted the first meetup I did some research because I hope I remember like the main things at least, but I think it was MagFest 7 or something, like let's meet there. And Mike Yama, by the way, he was one of my, he was also like into run and gun games. So I looked up to him a lot, and like in game wise, like he was such a speedrunner, like so great. And it was like great that he did host the first meetup. So I was so stoked about going over there. And I think like me and Mike Yama, we discussed some of the games we played. Like he had, I don't know if you know the story, but he had the Mega Man X world record for NE and 100%. So, and I beat his records in Mega Man X. So we discussed Mega Man X a lot, and like And then I did a run of Mega Man X2, and I couldn't find like any information of that game. And I know that we discussed that game a lot because he started to attempt like runs of it, but he never like went the whole way. He only had like records for X, X3, and X4, and multiply other like run and gun titles. But the X2, there was so much RNG to get like a decent run. But he had a lot of like good tips, so I knew him a lot because we have talked about Mega Man X2 a lot and other games as well.
That's cool.
So we learned. I remembering there was really no many people to like discuss the strats with. Like we didn't get any far in the forum, so I remember we were into a chat, and at that time I had the DVD recorder. It was easy to like. Finally, I could upload them on the internet. So I showed him the runs of the stages. I did some practice, and he like gave me a lot of good advice. So it turned it into the X2 run later. So I knew him in a way, and I knew some other runners also at that meeting. So of course I booked like an airplane ticket. And I think I was the only European guy there, at least the first meetup we had. But I don't remember exactly what we did at that meetup, but it was so much fun to just talk to everyone. And I think we had a showcase, like showing a lot of runs in one of the rooms there at MagFest. And there was some people interested, and we discussed a lot of like runs there and had a lot of fun.
Was that your first time traveling over to the States?
That was the first. I also had relatives in US, so actually like 1 year earlier than this meet, I had been in the States once. So that was my second time, but the first time like because of the speedrunning.
Right.
So, and the second year, they were playing for this classic games done quick, right? I at first I don't know if I go one more time over to US, but then they had like this marathon thing, and then they tried to start doing a schedule, and then I think I figured out that they need to show a lot of classic games, and I am very much into classic games, and that is what a lot of people want to watch. So it was really fun to go over there and do a hell of a lot of runs in classic games done quick.
There are a lot of them. You played a bunch during that first that classic games done quick.
I don't recall like how most of the runs turned out, but when I did some research, I found like a list of like 16 games. Like Fresma will play this, or 16 runs. 16 runs. So it was a lot of runs, and it was I did a lot of suggestions on the forum. I can beat this game at that time, or this game at that time, and so but I didn't have the time to really practice all these games. Most of the games I didn't really had to practice because I was so much into them, but some games I like Metroid. Can't someone beat Metroid? And no one signed it up, and I had beat it under 1 hour at least. So I think that let's practice it for a few weeks and try to pull off a run of it. So I think I like claimed if you really want someone to beat Metroid at this marathon, I can do it in like at least 30 minutes. So it was not close to the world record, but they thought that, hey, we want Metroid in this run, so you have to play it. So
it's on you.
And that's kind of fun as well, like the Metroid run. I remember it because I had done some like 30, 40 practice runs. So I don't remember my exact like best time, but I pulled off like 30, 35 minutes all the time, and it went well. But then at the marathon, I got the worst lag of my life playing a Metroid game. So I don't know if I even completed the game at the Classic Games Done Quick.
Oh my god!
There was a lot of games.
There's a
played
fun
that.
race with you and Andrew G on SMB3, and that went well for you. You won that race.
Yeah. So yeah, I think I did win it. I haven't like watched it in many years now, so I don't remember how it turned out. Was that the race when I could have like played it faster than 11 minutes, but I did the mistake in the end? Maybe that was the
Yeah, I
case.
think so. I think you're right. It's been a while since I've seen the run myself, but I just remember that what I don't remember what happened at the end there actually.
But I think I passed the hands, right?
Yeah, you did exactly. There was no hands, so that puts you way far ahead.
Yeah.
For me, one of the memorable moments is the Contra run and the whole thing that went around that. The whole event has the feel of a meetup. It feels like you all are just hanging out. You decide to take the shirt off, do the whole thing with Contra. And I remember seeing that video very early on in speedrunning. I'm like, these guys look like they're having so much fun playing this game. It just seemed like you all were having a great time while doing this thing.
Yeah. Yeah, it was so much fun. And like I remembering like we had like at one point at the screen you could see like how many people are watching, and it was more than 1,000 people, and you was like really not believed it, like there's so many people watching right now, so you're going to play. And I'm not that good at English, but I was a lot worse back then. So I couldn't like use my language a lot to like show off, because it was like I felt that, hey, this is let's show off in any way we could, like having a fun time, and like it has to be like interesting to watch all the time. So I don't really know how it went out. It was like, how much do they have to donate to like you playing shirtless? So yeah, I don't remember the details, but I know that my t-shirt was really like thin, so I realized that, hey, I can just rip it off like in the middle. So it was let's have some show time.
Yeah.
So it was not planned. It was just a fun thing, and I know that I hear it often about the shirtless run at Contra. It was so much fun.
It's one of those memorable. There are a handful of memorable moments from that event, but that was one of them. And I found it on YouTube, obviously years later when I first started seeing speedruns. But it's one of those things that sticks out at you. It's just like it just seems a very relaxed. It seems you can see like nowadays donation incentives are a big part of games done quick. Thanks to, I think, something like that happening, like whether you realize it or not, that helped raise a bunch of money for charity, you know, like there's a really good cause. And it's one of those things that I think has been around now for, it just is part of the whole community now. Like this is the way you do it. So I just thought that part was really cool.
Yeah.
So did you ever, I don't know if you've watched any games done quick recently, but it's turned into this behemoth, you know, I mean, they're raising billions of dollars. It's just huge. Did you have any idea that this was going to be a thing that would happen twice a year and make all this, you know, money for charity?
I had some ideas about the community and speedrunning, because I was kind of frustrated that it did not develop into something really big. Like, there is so many people playing a Mario game, and I was frustrated. I know we talked about it at these meetups, that you could not post casual runs. There is only one world record, and that is what you can see on the internet. It was difficult. It was a barrier if you wanted to put a record or showing off your time at YouTube back in the day, because there was so much you need to have a recording equipment and all this stuff. So I saw a great need of like what becomes speedrun.com later. But I knew that somehow this community will grow like so big. That was my thought, what I believed that it would develop into something. And there was many people like younger than me that have played a lot of games, and when they get older and figure out how to record your playtime and submit it to somewhere, it has to be like an enormous like tsunami wave of people wanting to compete in video games. There is nothing that really could stop it. But I think that the Twitch thing was like not the way I expected it to grow. But at the Classic Games Done Quick, I realized that it's such a great way to show all these games, and doing a marathon thing is so fantastic. So many people watching it back then. And it was developing so fast from the first year to the second. So it was really cool. So yeah, I expected it to develop, but not the way, like it was maybe more development than I thought a little bit. Yeah, there were so many like posted times of games now at speedrun.com and in other places. So it's a fantastic development.
Thousands and thousands.
Yeah.
I'm glad you mentioned the view count of Classic Games Done Quick, because I was curious like how many people were watching it at the time, because there had to have been people watching for it to develop to what it did the next year, you know, seeing it grow and grow and grow. And I kind of feel the same way about ESA, where ESA has now grown into this thing as well, and you all were there at the beginning, taking those chances and putting that thing together. I know it's different people now who run it, but it still wouldn't have happened the way it happens now if it weren't for all of you getting together and doing it the first time. It seems, was ESA kind of a similar approach too, where you guys wanted to do some charity and do some speed running and show off the community and that kind of thing?
For me, I thought that I don't have the time really to do something great of it, because it would take too much time off from my like family goals and all these things. And then I was worried, like, how could we fix all this technical stuff? It was more, I think in a way it was more complicated back then. The equipment, you don't had much, like there was not many options in how you go into stream. There was not many people know how it worked out. It was quite early in the development, and I know that like, so the local boys like Sven and Krippe and these people, they convinced me like, hey, we fix the stream and you fix the marketing and the locale and some money to like do it. And it was I had no idea of how are they going to fix the technical stuff, but I was responsible for doing a schedule of people like managing the stream. And it was so difficult to do the schedule, because some people in the schedule, they said like, hey, when do I need to eat and sleep and stuff like that? It's not possible. But there was many like saying that, yeah, I can be there like 24 hours a day, no problem. I can sleep during the runs. So they were so motivated to get this thing to work.
That's awesome.
So when we got to the event, I was just like, hope that this will turn out okay now. And we got a lot of like help from SDA people to marketing it.
Cool.
So the success of the first ESA event was so great. Like we had many viewers, we had a lot of donations, and it was so many people showing up already at the first event. Like there was people from all over Europe. It was maybe some Americans the first year, I don't remember. And people come from all over the place just to be there. And I remembering there was really, at first, there was no one that wanted to organize it the second year. But I think that I don't have the time. So I was doing some planning to start like a real organization of like running it forward. But for me, it was like a gamble because I know I had to put a lot of time in it, and it's like, it's a risk starting a company. I need to have like an income for the family as well. Yeah. So at some point I decided to, no, I will not like organize. I think I didn't organize the second. It was Fredrik Edenal who took over the organization. So I'm very glad for that. But it was, I think, like I had like a perspective of how the European Species Assembly should develop. I think Fredrik, he had like a similar idea, but a little bit different. Mm-hmm. So in a way, it was like a different event from Awesome Games Done Quick. I had another idea of how to develop the organization. I thought that there was some things in Games Done Quick that should be different. So I had an idea, but it turned out that Fredrik took over, and I'm glad it's keep doing these meetups. So it's really fun.
It's definitely still going strong, and you were able to perform. You had the first few years you were there still doing runs. So when do you even remember when was like your last speedrun that you ever did, whether it was at an event or just in person? When did you finally have to step away for family and all the other commitments outside of speedrunning?
My last really like grinding for a world record was when I beat the Mario 3 world record in 2009. After that, I have not been really attempting any world record seriously. There was like short times of practicing before the European Speedrunners Assembly. I can't play a game without thinking how it would be to do a speedrun of it. It's like when you play the games so much. So I think at one point during my practice run to European Species Assembly, I improved my own Contra record a little bit, I think. Like with 1-2 seconds maybe. Or if it was earlier, maybe my record was already beaten. I don't remember. There was at least one point I improved the Contra record, but it was not like serious like world record grinding, I think. So I haven't really like grinding hard after that. But now and then I like just for fun doing some speedrun tricks. So I have been like done some practice with Mario 3 and Contra just for fun, seeing all these new records and some new tricks and strategies. It's just fun to try them out. I have not been doing it like seriously, so like 1 or 2 evenings just to try things out, and it has been a lot of fun. But I haven't like having goal to beat a record. So
do you ever miss it? Do you ever miss grinding or speedrunning or any of the events or anything like that?
Yeah, I do. It's so fun to doing runs. So it's like some friends always like ask me, about the world record, and why don't you? Could you take it back? And it's like, yeah, it would be fun trying. I know it's like the records today they are so much improved. So you have to really dig very, very deep to get the records. So it's fun. My older kids, like I had 3 kids, but the older ones, like they are 8 and 10. They start like figuring out that I had the world record for like 1 year ago, and they used to ask me now and then, shouldn't you like do the records? I try to go for the records
it's
again.
It's easy, Dad. Can't you just grind out a record real easy?
yeah. So it's fun. It would be fun, but I also think that it would be fun to just do casual runs, like just running and submit sometimes to speedrun.com would be really fun. going for the world record or something would be fun as well. But I know how much time you have to put into it. So, well, maybe right now I don't have the time, because I will only get frustrated, like being interrupted all the time. And
Right.
you know, I always feel like I'm not like the kids think I should be with them all the time, everywhere, in all cases. And how hard I try to work with the kids and get the family running, I'm never like, they are never satisfied. So it's hard to get time with the gaming. So
I'm glad you
but
mentioned.
I do play games though. But
Yeah, what do you? I mean, I'm curious. What do you play nowadays that you find, if you, for those rare minutes you have the game? What do you play nowadays that's fun?
yeah, well, for the last 11 years after my like Mario games, I've been playing very little, except for the European Speedrun assemblies and the meetups we had. So I very little time playing games. I was into a period like when I only had like two kids. I played some Street Fighter just for fun, multiplayer on the Super Street Fighter 4.
Yeah.
Like it was fun trying. And I have just like, when I was grinding and doing these world records, I was so much into it. I did play some new games now and then, try some new things, but my focus was on speedrunning. But now I enjoy just playing some games for like casual, like just enjoy the game the way it should be supposed to be enjoyed. So we have a PS4 and Switch, and like playing some of the greatest games of the new generations of consoles is fun. And now and then I go back and play some classic games that I like never played as a kid. It's also fun. So I do it like, but I like last year or so I have been trying to like play some more, take some more time off and just relax and play. So
I think it's important, and I'm glad that you mentioned that even the speed runs are fun. Like having fun with gaming, that's such like an important part of it. One of the things that really attracted to me to Mario 3, when I was watching you and others play this game at this crazy level, it looked fun to do all of the awesome strats in Super Mario Brothers 3. And when you actually learn them, it's really fun to pull off some of these crazy tricks in these games. And it sounded like you had similar things too, as you were grinding or playing even modern games, things like that.
Yeah, it's and when you play the modern games, you always think also that how would this game be to speedrun? One I didn't realize, like I played some Ninja Gaiden and hack and slash games.
Yeah,
I enjoyed them a lot, and it's like, I don't know, have you played Ninja Gaiden?
Yeah. I struggled with it. The controls are very different. It's not an easy game.
No. It's so fun because it feels like they take the classic like tight precision and put it into a hack and slash, and it's I just love the hack and slash like games. But the Ninja Gaiden games, they are so brutal, and you have like the knife on your throat all the time, and it's adrenaline pumping. And if you have input lags in your TV, you will not beat the bosses. They are so like no. What do you say? They are so difficult, especially on the higher levels of difficulty. So that's one fun thing that I have discovered later, is the hack and slash, and all kinds of like modern action games are really fun.
Yeah.
So in a way, I play some also goal-oriented just to enjoy all these modern games.
Yeah. And the challenges and everything. I think that's a great point. Do you have like an old TV sitting around the house somewhere, just in case you ever wanted to bust that out?
Yeah. Okay. I have the what do you call it? CRT TVs, the fat ones. Yeah, and they are great. Like playing the classic consoles on them.
I think that's cool that I've actually heard this quite a lot from people and their kids who are there's a surprising amount of younger people into the older games, because a game that's fun is a game that's fun. That doesn't change with 20 or 30 years of history. And I think that's a testament to those games that we grew up with, that they're still fun today. They're still really great to play through, you know?
Yeah.
So
yeah, they have succeeded in that. Like they were so, like the gaming community was so focused on like doing flashy things like 3Ds and
right.
like moves and stuff, but they didn't like very often focus on the actual gaming. But now it seems like it's have taken another direction. You know, the gamers are like, they want the old style kind of gaming more.
Well,
or like,
you mentioned Switch earlier. That's one of the things I just recently played through Mario Odyssey, and it's like it's really fun to play. They really obviously spent a lot of time with controlling Mario, and it's super fun, and it doesn't get old very quick. You know, it's really fun to play through like that kind of thing. So
yeah.
There was one thing. Do you mind sharing? You shared this book before we started recording of the world records, and I think this is kind of puts you back in that place in history. I think this is so cool that this actually even existed. What is this book that you were sharing, and how did you even know that existed?
There is also, well, I don't know how it is in the US, but in Sweden it's always like a Guinness Book of World Record every year, or at least it was back in time. So if you go back like 12 or 13 years back in time, there was one Guinness World Book of Records every year.
Yes.
But somehow, I don't know why, like 2008, they did like
Gamers edition of the Guinness Book of World Record.
Yeah, and it's funny. I didn't know it was going to be released. So when I was go shopping for food a day, and I saw this like book in the shelf, and I was like, "What is this?" And then I like bought it right away, and I was seeing that my name is in there. Like there have like Mario.
Andrew
Mario
G.
records in it.
There you are. It's so cool.
Yeah. So I mentioned in it and like 5 Mario World Records.
Oh, look at all those other ones. That's so cool. That is so wild. That's so cool. That was like actually in a book. I mean, I don't even know. Let's see. In 2008, Twin Galaxy. Like where was SDA around in 2000? Like where were you submitting times in 2008?
Yeah, it was SDA.
It was SDA. Okay.
And Twin Galaxies also existed. So. If you go back in history, like Twin Galaxies was the place for the world records submissions. But then, like, Games Done, SDA and all this Quake records was published there, and it was after a while. I mean, the community figured out that SDA was a better way to and place to have the world records, because they figured out that the submissions process was I think it was better
video submissions
all the time. And they figured that, like at Twin Galaxies we saw the record times and we heard of the record time, but no one had seen it.
No proof.
We didn't see the point.
Yeah, right,
SDA,
exactly.
It became more popular and the place to be for speedruns, at least. I don't know. I think the Guinness Book of World Records just asked if they could publish some of the records in this book, I think, to the moderators of SDA, probably back then. And then... But I'm not sure.
I wasn't around then as well, and I do have to say though that I'm really glad that the community moved over to SDA, or that became the thing, because you can still search SDA today. Like it exists. We wouldn't have speedrun.com if it weren't for SDA. Like you can see the evolution, that how important that site was to the growth of the community, for sure.
Yeah.
So
definitely.
I'm glad to hear you mentioned it, that maybe you'd consider speedrunning again in the future, because I know that I probably wouldn't be speedrunning it if it wasn't for seeing some of the things that you did. And I really appreciate you taking all the time and kind of going through this history, because I'm always curious about the process and how does somebody from Sweden get a tape over to Texas? Like I was always curious, like how do you do that? You just spend the money on the shipping, I guess.
Yeah.
That's okay. Sven just popped up in the chat. He's going, will we see a Frezzy Man Man and the Mexican runner Contra co-op in the future. Just going at
it. Yeah.
Okay. He says yes.
Would be fun.
I'm just saying.
Yeah.
I hope that you do join, and maybe get a chance someday to attend an event again in the future, because it's great to have all of your runs that we've had and at these events and seeing this stuff. So I really do thank you so much for your time and taking us down memory lane here and sharing some of this stuff.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun talking about it. Definitely.
Is there a run that you ever felt like you really wanted to, like, that you left time on the table that you wanted to revisit and see if you could get a better time in?
Yeah, like pretty much all my speed runs. There is so much, like, now you can practice with save states, and there is so many new strategies and tricks into them. So it would be so fun to try them out.
Play with modern technology.
But I also think that, like, Contra is an interesting game, and like Mario 3, I played this so much, so they would be really fun to go back to. I also like the Mega Man games. I think that it would be fun to revisit them as well. So yeah.
Just to also let everyone know out there that's watching or listening, Frezzy Man was nice enough to do this late at night in Sweden, so we haven't been interrupted by the family and the kids and all that kind of stuff. So I'm glad you found a quiet part of the house for a couple hours to do this. I appreciate it, man.
Yeah, it was like bedtime for the kids when you called, so I was worried that they would go like tornado in the house, but they did it well.
Okay. Hey, thank you. Well, thank you to your family for allowing you a couple hours. I appreciate that too, man. That's really cool.
Yeah. In the early periods of time, it was not easy to upload a video of you playing, but we shared like tricks and stuff in all directions. And like for Contra, for example, it was, felt like I was ahead, so there was I couldn't ask anyone like what to do, really. It felt like but for Mario 3 it was different, because I discussed some tricks with, for example, Andrew G, who had the record. He's such a nice guy.
He is.
But then I started grinding it, and I was so much into doing the world record. And Andrew G, he said that I will not play Mario 3 for the next years, because I'm so much into other Mario records. Mm-hmm. And I didn't know anyone else that was trying to beat the record. So, and I figured out some tricks that I didn't really tell anyone about, because I knew I was going to submit a really fast time. So I didn't tell anyone that I was grinding, because I wanted it to be big news when the record came out.
That's cool.
So I talked only with it to close friends, and that was interested in my progress. So I think that was a big surprise when I did that time. I reached such a low time in Mario 3. But other than that, we shared tricks and stuff, I think. But many of my games I was the first one submitting a run. So we're just, maybe I knew someone that had been into running that game, and then we discussed and changed ideas and stuff. And I also got a lot of, I think I discussed a lot of Mario 3 with Tompa, if I recall correctly. He was into he studied the frame data at that point, I think. So I got some ideas from him as well. With Mario 3, I didn't really share it for the last period before I did beat the record. But I think there is one thing I can tell about Mario 3 that might be something that the community does not know about, but I'm not sure, but I haven't seen it yet. When you reach the final boss, I found a strategy, when I did practice for the ESA marathons, that I didn't really share because I was not into the community. I think I told it to Sven and some more that if you get close to Bowser, you can get like a spread rhythm on him for like in Contra. And if you get really lucky with how he moves on the screen, you can shoot him before he jumps. And I don't know, maybe probably the record holder should know about it, but I have done it several times. I killed him before he jumps. So if you add that trick to the grinding, maybe you could like shave off like 1-2 seconds or so, I think.
Which in a run that short would be huge. I mean, that would definitely be something that could improve the time, because the current world record, Bowser does the jump and you have to go kill him on top of the door. Yeah. Wow, that's crazy.
Well, I don't know even if I have seen the latest world record, so I'm not sure, but
it's got this crazy wall clip in it. I'm just going to throw a wall jump and wall clip. There's use a star in the castle, and it's crazy.
Yeah. It's also a thing when Mitch, when he beat like the record for the first time or second time, it also felt like I was so satisfied with my record because he beat it. The gameplay maybe was not better at first, like a huge improvement, but they had some new tricks like pulling into it so that he beat it. But then they add like other tricks, like the wall jump. Right. It's like such a tight trick, and add that to an already perfect run is like really impressive. And also the wall zip after that. So, but then I have been like practicing it for fun, but it's really hard to pull off in a run. It's really impressive that they have done that.
It's crazy the grind that some of these, like Karua and Mitch, have done at times where they're just 5 hours a day. They're playing the game all the time. You know, I mean, that game specifically, you have to put in the reps because of the way the RNG works. You have to keep playing it and play it until you get the RNG and you execute perfectly.
Yeah.
Brutal. It's totally brutal. That's really cool though. That something like that still exists out there. That's awesome. It doesn't have a Bowser kill without the jump.
Yeah, it's such a brutal game to run overall because all the slow scrolling levels and the RNG stuff, it's like crazy.
It's a roller coaster.
Yeah.
Well, once again, I mentioned it before. I can't thank you enough for taking the time, and I think everyone's going to really enjoy this, just getting a chance to hear what it was like before there was no speedrun.com and Games Done Quick wasn't the behemoth it is now. So thanks so much for doing this, man. I appreciate it, and thanks for sharing the time. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone, for listening and watching. If you're enjoying the podcast, subscribe, leave a review. All those things go a long way to helping out the podcast. If you'd like to continue the conversation, I'm on Twitter @LatMackey, or you can also join the LatMackey Discord, where we have a sequence break channel. We talk about guests, we have questions. It's really interactive, really fun. Please feel free to stop on by. Thanks so much. See you in the next one.